I'm going to help.
Yeah, thank you.
Good morning, Pura Vida. Welcome to this week's Dharma Talk, and thank you for joining us here at beautiful Bali Rica, in beautiful Costa Rica, and on the internet. Please make yourself comfortable in a centered, stable, comfortable position, and we'll begin this session with 3 minutes, just 3 minutes of mindfulness, of breathing, meditation, just relaxing, letting go of any cares and concerns with your breath, breathing in, relax, breathing out, let go, and just enjoy sinking into stillness and silence for a few lovely minutes. Sharon will time us. Open your eyes, reach your hands, and Jeff is going to give a talk. I'm not sure on what, but it's going to be good. Because they always are.
Right. Yeah. No, I don't feel pressure anymore. So I want to start off with the word influences.
The word what?
Influences.
Okay.
I've had many in my life, and very divergent ones. Often polar opposites, similar time. I remember one of the first ones, it was the two divergent families that my parents came from. Very influential, both in each of my parents' life in growing up, and in their personalities, and in their involvements with us when I was growing up. Another influence was a high school teacher of mine who was a radical liberal hippie type. And then at the dinner table at night, my conservative Republican father would counteract what I had heard at school.
So that's where I was from.
Yeah. I know.
Same thing.
And influential, both of them.
Yeah.
There were a series of early years where I was really influenced by Christian spirituality.
By what?
Christian spirituality. I worked in churches. And then I was influenced as I left that community. Actually, it didn't fit anymore for me in my 30s. Then I was influenced by gay community. Some parts of it, anyway. And then I was influenced by being a father and by being married to a woman and then having male partners afterwards. Hugely influential. Influential with a gay fathers group of men who had been involved in a heterosexual marriage and had struggled with it, either were still in it or had come out of that, and all of the turmoils about what it was to be a gay person and to be a parent. I could go through a whole bunch more that I've had of the different places that I've lived that have all been influential. At the edge of the suburbs, in the suburbs, in a small town, in the inner city, and now on a mountain. All of them influential. And then the variety of people I've had romantic involvements with in my life, including my current partner, and all of their influences. My latest influence has been this Dharma group.
Oh, the Dharma.
And so what I thought I would do today, I think I've been involved for 6 years as a participant, and then as sharing some speaking with Ruthie and some studying for it.
For several years, man.
I think it's 5. For sure 5. It could be 6. I've been in Costa Rica for 7.
Counting?
Yeah, right. Influential. And so I thought this week I would do the format a little different rather than just present a topic. And I thought of 5 things that I've learned by coming here. Either that or by studying or presenting here that I've learned and have been really influential in the past things. And I'm going to do very short little presentations of each of those 5, and then I'd like us to spend 5 to 7 minutes discussing each of those specific areas and get your input. So instead of leaving all the interaction to the end, I'd like to do 5 little segments of things that have been influential for me, and then you either talk about that topic for yourself if you'd like to. Otherwise, we can just move on to the next topic. It's up to us. All right? Does that sound okay
Yeah.
for today? Okay.
Sounds fun.
Okay, good.
I'm glad we don't have volunteers today. It's just sort of our regulars.
Yeah, it's actually, it's kind of nice that it's a small group
Yeah.
today. I like it. So the first influential of the 5 ideas that have really influenced my thinking are the Four Noble Truths. Hello, come on in. Good morning.
This is a guest.
Hi,
Okay.
come on in, make
Come
yourself
on in.
comfortable.
So the Four Noble Truths. Let me highlight them in my words. They're also up here for us to see all the time. Um, um, the first noble truth being that life includes suffering, a dose of reality,
It's not exclusive to that, but it is definitely a factor.
a factor.
One of Sharon's friends said, "Oh, life isn't suffering."
We suffer
You
in
have
life.
to qualify it.
We suffer in life.
We suffer in life.
Number 2, the cause of this suffering is clinging, grasping, craving, ignorance, and delusion. We could spend 5 weeks on each of those. But somehow it's the second noble truth talks about the energy by which we get trapped into some suffering. The third noble truth talks about choice. There's a way out of this trap. And the way out of this trap is a variety of means of releasing and letting go. The fourth noble truth is if you indeed empty that space of suffering and see the possibility of something different progressively over time, that there are some guidelines that might help you. The Eightfold Path is the fourth noble truth, and it's up here. And so anytime you want to understand that better, why this has been so influential to me is it's so reality based. It's not pie in the sky. It's not theology. It's not concepts. It's a finger pointing at the moon. And so what I like about it is each of those noble truths go through a interesting format by which we might operate in our life. Observe reality as it is, the first noble truth. The second, analyze where trouble comes from. Usually it's talking about our mindset is where the trouble is. But in analysis, third, we have a choice out of some of the traps. And fourth, no choice is fully realized without the action that follows. So those 4 things are a beautiful kind of motif for us operating in a much healthier, holistic, you could say spiritual, centered, balanced way, in a productive way. Observation, analysis, choice, action. It's really influential the week when Ruthie identified those in that way. I went home thinking about that a lot on that week.
Say that list again.
You observe,
Awareness, observation.
you analyze, you choose, you act.
On your choice.
I often think that some of the suffering trouble that happens around us, self-induced often, is that we skip some steps along the way. We observe something, so we act. Or we get stuck in analyzing things and we never get to choices in action. Can you see some of the traps about how to, when you don't do this in a holistic and a balanced way, it can be problematic. it's a beautiful motif about understanding, thinking, speech, action, vocation, effort, mindfulness, and concentration. All 8 of the Eightfold Path. That will lead you directly onto the Eightfold Path, which is beautiful, beautiful, not laws, but suggestions about how you might continue to go down a center road in your life without too many detours. That's number 1. So anybody else, 5 minutes, can you kind of time?
Sure.
Okay, let's do 5, and then if we go over to 7, it's no problem. The 4 Noble Truths and those ideas. Anything meaningful for you that's been incredibly meaningful and thoughtful for me, both in kind of format and in the reality, the simple reality of the 4 Noble Truths?
I would say we have a choice. We have a choice to stay where we are and suffer, or we can change, and we can make that choice.
Mm-hmm.
We're not victims. And I was brought up to think that we were victims of our circumstance. And that's what this has taught me more than anything.
Really?
Is that we can actually exert our free will, and make changes.
Perfect.
Awesome. That's great. So that's been especially in that progression of 4, that realization of choice has been powerful for you.
Very
good.
I think that kind of points out that for a long time she wasn't aware of the first choice, which is awareness.
Exactly.
Which is awareness.
Yeah,
Because
you can observe.
We simply accept our
Yes.
circumstances and the input from all the influences.
Yes.
So it's about influences at the beginning. And it takes time and experience and living life to begin to be aware of that you're even suffering.
Mm-hmm.
I know people who are suffering terribly,
And they're not even aware.
and they're not even
Or
aware.
they just accept it.
They just that's perfectly normal to them.
Mhm.
So
I'm just wondering if there's a 1.5 step there, because I think when you're suffering, right? You know there's something out of kilter. You know you're feeling bad. You know you're angry or you have some emotion. But until you really analyze it, you really can't identify where it's coming from.
the analysis is super important.
And so you tend to blame other people, right?
Right.
And you're stuck there. Because it's fun to blame other people up to a point. You don't take responsibility, but the reason you're suffering is that you're feeling what they're inflicting upon you. And your choice is for you to do something. You're not going to change them, right?
Correct.
You have to act differently.
Right.
And you can't unless you identify that it's you who's suffering. It's not the situation.
So John, clarify the 1.5.
Yeah.
What do you view that 1.5 then
I think
as?
between the first
accepting part of the equation goes into accepting your what's really making you feel suffering, and included in the equation is yourself. And
Okay.
you are an actor in your own suffering, and when you realize that, then you can see a way to act.
Good.
That's what I learned.
Good.
very
I
important
think-
point.
Awesome.
For me, when I've had various situations, occur in my life, but you don't. It's like you don't necessarily. You get so that you're used to what either somebody's doing. You're used to that, even though you're not real happy, but you kind of get stuck in this rut. And for me, what helped was talking to other people about a particular situation, like friends, and then in talking about it, it's just like, wow, why am I putting myself in this position and allowing this to happen? I need to that didn't happen. That light didn't go off until I talked to other people about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were part of your second step, which is the analysis of it.
Yeah.
You received their input. I'm sure you didn't take it all, Susan. You listened and you considered.
But a lot of it was just me talking about things that happened.
Yeah.
And hearing myself talk about it.
Sure.
We
out
start
loud
to listen to
somebody.
ourselves.
So it's just
Very
like,
important.
God, why am I subjecting myself?
Uh-huh.
But don't you think a lot of people feel very comfortable with, even though if it's bad for you, if it's negative, it's something you are comfortable with because it's familiar. And
course,
that, yes, and it's sometimes it takes more courage to get out and to change things.
Change equals death.
Pardon me?
Change equals death. That's what I think. So
Yeah,
it's,
yeah.
it's much more easy to be
Well,
familiar even in a negative situation.
Exactly.
And actually change and reinvent yourself. 'Cause it's the
Exactly.
change of the unfamiliar.
That's what I was trying to say.
There's a risk.
Yeah,
Can you
absolutely.
repeat that for me? Because
Yeah.
I couldn't quite hear.
I was just saying change equals death because it's new and therefore you're having to reinvent yourself and therefore the
Right.
fear of the unfamiliar
Right.
is sometimes greater than the fear with what you know, even though at the moment it might be an unpleasant situation.
I think this gets
You're right in that it takes courage and a facing and working through fear of the unfamiliar.
What happens if you understand the theory? And I'm a big believer in self-propulsion through self-determination through action. It's kind of how I live my life. And I understand the theory. What is the origin of suffering? Is it attachment, or is it expectations, or is it what?
You said it first.
And how attachment? Okay, of my.
That's what the Buddhists say.
Okay, how do we get rid of that?
Hey,
You live a lot.
we're gonna get there at my fifth one today.
Awesome.
However,
Get rid of
I'm
that.
gonna give you a simple answer. I'm gonna give you a simple answer.
it's all your mother's fault.
Blame it on your mother.
This is the Freud class, right?
Detachment is the answer.
Involved
And what
attachment.
and what that means. And the fifth point is detached involvement. So we'll get there.
But now that's wonderful because you just laid it out on the table because that's what everybody faces. You know, first of all, we got to get over thinking that this is all something somebody else is doing and that we just are victims of whatever is out there. And then we got to realize we have a role in this. Then we have to decide how to deal from there. That's how you get over it, is by taking responsibility for your own self, I think.
And that fits with John's acceptance.
Just a short
Last
thing
thing, and then we'll
about the suffering part and what we've gleaned from the Dharma about the suffering. For me, I mean, it's radically changed my perspective on things, but one of it was that suffering that we all do. And that realization, maybe it's comfort in numbers or whatever it is, but as a human being, it's kind of normal to process this, and that this too shall pass. There's a way out, and that the Dharma has opened that door. That this is how you do it.
So you've been empowered by the idea that
we all
the suffering is inclusive.
sort of.
This is not exclusive. It's inclusive.
Well, yeah, and
Yes.
compassion. It's increased my compassion. Okay, I'm suffering about this. Well, so is everyone. We all are in it. We're all in the same soup, and we're leading each other home.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, that was my.
Okay, do me a dinger and let's do the next
we're
one.
on it. Okay.
And let's ding again.
Oh,
You got to ding louder than that.
that was so gentle.
That's a
Beautiful, beautiful. So the second thing that I've learned that I want you to kind of weigh in and on is the idea of origins.
Of what?
Origins.
Origins. Okay.
The start of things. It has been incredibly attractive to me to think of myself and others as clear, pure, radiant light. I think I've always intuitively known this, but there have been a lot of influences that have clouded that intuition over the years. And so the idea that, as I forget who over here said it, that to live a healthy, productive, whole life, happy life, let's use the Buddhist words, a happy life, is to always return home to where you started. It is like Dorothy at the end of The Wizard of Oz.
Remembrance.
Remembering where you came from.
Remembrance, who you really are.
I have a beautiful quote from a lady that Melody Beattie, who wrote, I believe, Codependent No More is the name of the book. She worked at and was one of the founders of Eden House, where I worked for 6 years. And then she became an author and did this 12-step lady. Here's what she says about pure beginnings. Enlightenment is not something to be attained as a human being. It is your natural state. Your very core is composed of love and light. It is consciousness. It is the fallacy of ego and reality that prevents you from realizing your inner divinity. You must shed illusions, and you will be left with pure enlightenment. It is not something to be attained. You must lose, and you shall be.
Beautiful. I wish you'd print that out and hand it to everyone. Tell them to put it in front of them and read it every day until you realize, oh, now I get it. You know?
Enlightenment is not, and we've been talking about enlightenment, but enlightenment is not a destination. It is the road.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a road.
In.
It is a road in, and it is a road of remembrance where we came from, and hopefully and supposedly where we will be as the circle of life comes around again. I love the first one. Enlightenment is not something to be attained as a human being. It is your natural state.
To be remembered.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that's all I have with that one, because it's so powerful. It's so beautiful and contrasted by other religions that often start with the idea that you are flawed. Mm-hmm. And somehow need repairing.
I have something to say about that.
Yes.
Again.
Good. So you timing us for now the 5 to 7?
We're almost finished with your 5.
No, okay. No. Yes, start again now when we're talking.
Oh, okay.
Mine are going to be 2 minutes to 5 or 10 minutes. Yeah. I don't know.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry. Yes, starting. Okay. For years, I did massage therapy.
You didn't what?
I did massage therapy.
Yeah.
And so these people would come and they would be on the table and they would have, all this stuff going on with them. Flawed, suffering. And I would, after some years, I was just overwhelmed with the feeling of seeing their diamonds, seeing their beauty, their perfection. And it just became that's what moved me in what I did. And I could clearly see every person that came in was this perfect person, this perfect diamond. And I think that's what I was seeing.
Same.
And
same idea.
That's wonderful, because
that's what I have to say about that.
Anyone else?
If you reduce it, go ahead.
You sure? Okay. No, I think Ruthie and I were talking about this just recently, about actually being fortunate enough to have actually seen that pure white light.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think that's kind of like a fast track to, we've had out-of-body experiences or for whatever.
Right.
And I found that really helped me to understand exactly what you were just talking about.
Sandy and I both have had near-death experiences. I didn't get to the light, but because they knocked me out before that happened, and I didn't want them to, but they did anyway. So I didn't go that far into it, but I was young. I'd never heard of a near-death experience. I don't think you had either.
No.
And afterwards, I got really interested in what had happened. Because, it was the whole thing on the ceiling and the voice coming and all the rest of this, telling me it's not my time and you got to go back. And the main thing that stuck out was, people would say, God, you almost died. And I'm like, yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
I stopped all fear of death at
Yeah.
that point. And years later, I found out the researchers who do this, that is the one consistent thing about people who have a near-death experience is they have no fear of death afterwards. So you've gone home. The second one is that if you are in it to that point, you do go into the light. And this is over every culture in every part of the planet. This ability, and going all the way back to very early writings of any kind, is this knowledge of light as creation energy. And that's who we are. We're an energy being who comes from a purity. And then we get all messed up and we got to remember and go back to that.
Remember and go back to where we
But
came
it is
from.
quite possible and it does make a difference. I'm sorry I took too much time.
No, it's okay.
Go with it.
John, you want
Yeah.
to say something?
I don't want to be a skeptic about it, but when you think about all the experiences of your life, they meant something, right? And if you're saying that we were perfect to begin with,
This
and
is
we have to get-
essence.
We have to get back to that. Then are you saying that all of our experience reveal our true self to us, or that we learn nothing else from those experiences?
No, I think we progress, evolve, we grow.
Its essence is what we're talking about.
Energy.
But
The
if you
essential
say-
energy,
Yeah.
of creation, the truth of creation is light, positive. Darkness we consider negative. These are terms we use in a way. I don't know if I made that clear or not, but it's the essence of life is your breath. Without it, you don't have anything.
And I'm wondering if sometimes it's harder for someone who hasn't experienced to really understand
Yeah, well, I'm
that.
sorry we both went through that, but I'm glad we did.
Oh, I'm not
Yeah,
sorry at
yeah.
all.
I
It's
feel
life
dramatic
changing.
differently.
To go to John's John's point, I think it can be both of those things, John. It's inclusive of both of those things, that we're returning and we're evolving
Both.
all at the same time.
But it also suggests then logically that all the bad things in our life or all our bad habits have been learned. And they're not innate.
We could go into the karmic content of all this, of where we came from and what we bring forward, or even in family systems, the influence of our generations of ancestors, on us. But indeed, some of that stuff is powerful, but part of what we need to work on and adjust, shed, grow through. It's kind of all those things, John. I don't think it's one or the other. It's kind of not problematic. It's whole. It's a whole.
I don't know.
Does that make sense, John? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we could. Have
Yeah,
a
we could go for a
discussion
long
about
time.
this.
Of course we could.
Just quickly, the definition of samsara, which is the wheel of life, which is the wheel of the suffering one. The definition is to be lost and wandering, and you're searching, and that's your evolution is part of this searching, which is to remember to get back to the essence, which is, you like the T.S. Eliot quote. to see where we began and see it as a first time. So anyway, yeah, good point.
Let's go to number 3. So don't time me, just time
Yeah,
us.
got it.
Sorry,
I'm going to try to keep myself under control.
I
got
got
it.
to wandering in this because I really wanted to mention the other 5 hindrances and the bowls that we have. You've got the pure bowl, which is your essence, and then you have the hindrances. And this takes us to another topic, which is our dependent origination, the causes. One thing leads to another, and it begins with ignorance of who we really are. And it goes all the way around to enlightenment, which is when we remember who we really are. Beautiful. So,
Okay, the third one. One simple big word, equanimity.
mhm.
It's a theme that has wove its way through 6 years of my listening here. The middle way. Two illustrations on this one. One is a river, which I've used before. So to find the middle way is to resist floating and resist swimming upstream against the current versus floating downstream willy-nilly versus going with the flow skillfully. The middle way is the third one. It is not give it your best effort and you'll get there. Many times we're trained that way and we're swimming upstream, and the result is we don't get there and we are exhausted.
Mm-hmm. That's why renunciation, letting go, is over and over and over again, along with equanimity.
Yes.
Find the balance.
The second is, okay, I won't do that. So now, per vita, whatever happens. I just like cruise with that.
But that's part of it.
Well, it's the opposite. It's the polar opposite.
But
You got the two things swimming upstream, just floating willy-nilly downstream. The equanimous option is, it would be interesting to mindfully go with the flow skillfully.
Read the Tao Te Ching. That's what it's all about. And Buddhism is totally attached to that.
And what does that mean? You know what that means. What does that
What?
mean, read the Tao Te Ching?
Well, that's Lao Tzu's book,
I know.
the Tao,
What
which
does
is
it
the
mean?
way. It
Yeah.
means the way.
Okay.
And it is how you go with the flow by aligning your energies with the flow instead of going against it and constantly fighting it.
Mm-hmm. So it is skillful.
Very. It's extremely
If you think of it in the river illustration, it's like floating downstream, but watching where the boulders are, where the waterfall is, and those things, and
they don't say to be
giving
reckless.
effort.
Yeah.
Giving effort as you're in that flow. Another illustration of equanimous is really one of my favorites that I researched, and that is the idea of a magician with plates. Do you remember me sharing this one?
Yes.
This was really, really meaningful for me as I read this, and I'm like, oh, that totally makes sense. To be, and it fits with the river one as well, to be balanced, to be in the middle, is to be that magician and not catch every plate that's thrown at you and put it on a stick. It is also not to do the opposite, that you dodge them all and they all break.
Yeah.
A lot of people dodge most of the things in their life, and a lot breaks around them. The equanimous one is I have to read it because cultivate a practice of catching plates and deciding to spin or set aside. Again, about
Choice. And then the action.
Cultivate a practice of catching the plates and deciding what to spin and what to set aside. If you do that, I think that equals happiness.
I think.
Yeah.
It's skillful happiness. It's not resistant. It's not denial. All of the psychological, flaws that we can get into. It really is seeing life as it is, and we catch the plates and decide whether they will be productive and helpful and good for us. And then the ones that are not, we set those aside. We don't toss them. We set them aside. Buddhists have very little time for anger. And so that skillful setting aside in a mindful manner, this is what equanimity means to me, the kind of balance, and those two illustrations do it perfectly. If you have only been here a little bit, you haven't heard this enough, but this is a regular theme. Kind of, we can choose any topic, and this will be embedded in the topic because the Dharma is the middle way.
Mm-hmm. And that's often misunderstood because a lot of people mistake it as being black and white and a center line, and there's a moral equivalency that takes place, and that's not what it is. It's a poise and a balance. And so within any situation of two poles, you could have 10,000 things on either side. Each one has its own balance. You find where it is. It doesn't mean that bad is equal to good, and they're both the same thing. It's not that.
I want to do just one illustration of this, and I do this in couples counseling all the time, is that most healthy couples operate in the 30 to 70% range.
What's that mean?
That means that, let's say that two people want their own way about something, and they're a couple.
They have a conflict.
Most healthy people will operate in the 30 to 70 range most of the time, in the middle of the bell curve. And that means that I will get a piece of a win, you will get a piece of a win.
Mm-hmm.
We negotiate, we compromise, we understand, we merge. If people who look for 50-50 in relationships now, because it's the modern idea, are often disappointed when they get to, when they move past that perfect equilibrium. I think this is much broader than that, and it's more, the center way is a range. It's a spectrum rather than a point.
Maybe you could talk to Putin.
We could.
Somebody needs to.
We could. Hey, you think that, why do you say that, Cynthia?
Well, I mean, he wants it one way.
He does want it one way. Absolutely.
That's it.
Yeah.
I haven't seen you in ages.
Sorry.
Well, you want to know, I don't view a lot of politics as balanced.
No, it's not. Obviously it went boom.
And a lot of the conflicts between countries, these are not balanced. Each person wants what they want, and there's no 30 to 70%.
So I wanted to say something about the river.
Yes, please.
When you said that, it reminded me that, especially when you talked about hitting the rocks, for me, that those are the rocks are the sources of suffering.
Yes.
And you can either stay behind the rock and suffer, but they're really the signpost to tell you to go a different way.
To navigate.
100%.
So
on that.
Excellent.
what I see as suffering, if someone has been horrible to me and I'm suffering about it, okay, what am I supposed to get out of this? There's something in here that's telling me that I need to see about me. Forget about that person or him. What is it that I need to heal? What is it that I need to look at? I'm stuck behind that boulder of suffering until I can take a new path to go to the next boulder, because there's going to be another one.
Yeah, there is.
So, absolutely.
And you want to know, that as I listen to you, I think of the words that getting stuck behind the boulder is attachment. Attachment to the story, attachment to the history, any of those things, and detachment is what's my lesson, what's my way out,
And how do I go?
what's
And then deciding to go around the boulder.
absolutely, and that isn't effortless. It takes some effort to do that. Good.
And
I
there's-
really like that analogy. So thank
That's
you.
an excellent thought. And it always takes letting go of something to navigate around. You have to find that something you have to let go of in order to re-steer.
Yeah.
So instead of fighting against the boulder, you can welcome the boulder because it's going to show you a new way if you embrace it.
Absolutely. Embrace the enemy,
Right.
and they can become the friend.
It can become your biggest teacher.
The friend, which is your teacher. Somebody else about equanimity.
The plates analogy is excellent. It's really, really good. But the trick is knowing which plates to catch, right? And which plates to let go of. So
In that illustration, they say that you should catch all the plates.
you catch all of the plates.
You catch all the plates, but in that illustration, if you have another way of looking at it, I'd be perfectly happy for you to say that.
That's true, actually. So you catch the plates, and then instead of thinking, well, these are the ones that I all want to keep, or alternatively, these are the ones I want to set aside. It's black and white, it's either or, polarization. You need to have the wisdom to understand. Okay, well, this plate is good for me, or this is bad for me, and that wisdom comes from the rest of the Eightfold Path. Is that right? So you're clear and you can actually have that intuitive understanding.
Sounds good to me.
Awesome.
Somebody else.
Where's this guy gone the whole time?
Where's what?
He's just breaking it down. So
Yeah, really.
Nicely.
beginner's mind.
No, it's
Yeah.
Not that you're but
teacher.
here.
It's written right there.
it's on the board.
Well, yeah. I also lived the first part of my life in a Greek restaurant, so with the plates and analogies.
It fits.
And then,
It fits.
And then the other's more kind of like some kind of Roman banquet, and neither I'm particularly happy. So hence I'm in Costa Rica at the moment. So,
It would be even more meaningful if you had grown up in a circus.
well, it's true.
Anybody else on equanimity? A really, really powerful word in the Buddhist vocabulary and thinking. It's kind of so obvious, is it not? As you intuitively think about this, you're like, of course. Okay, let's move on.
You're the puniest dinner I ever heard.
All right.
Okay, here we go.
This one's a little broader, number 4, and I labeled it the energies of the Dharma. These are just individual words. I have a couple illustrations of them. These have been meaningful for me in 6 years in ways that I have not thought of them before. Loving kindness, compassion, intention, gratitude, mindfulness, happiness. Each of those words are certainly a topic that we have taken, especially Ruthie has taken those. And the one, I'm going to just highlight the one, and that is the happiness. Before coming here for 6 years, I have to say I thought it was a fairly superficial word.
Sure, frivolous.
You thought what?
I thought it was a
Superficial
fairly
Happiness.
yeah, it was like a superficial, like, a Disney ending. I didn't fully buy it, you know, and I guess I was more realistic about it. But I want to read the Buddha quote about I hope I have it. Here's my organization again. About happiness. Success is not the key to happiness. Happiness is the key to success. If you love what you are doing, you will be successful. The Buddha. Success is not the key to happiness. Therefore, that whole Western drive that we have and we're trained in will not lead us to happiness, and we see it all over. But happiness is the key to success. It seems very much an Eastern idea.
Let me poke my nose in again.
Yes, please.
Okay, I was thinking the other day. Are all of you old enough to remember bumper stickers that said things like "I'd rather be flying," or "I'd rather be surfing," or "I'd rather be single," or
No.
all kinds of. Well, they used to be on everything.
Yeah.
And
There's
I
a
got
bumper
thinking,
sticker that says,
I'd
"I'd rather
be
my other
with
cup
my
of
dog."
coffee, my other car is a Lamborghini," or
Yeah,
"I'd
something.
rather be doing
But
something."
an
I'd
American
rather
thing.
the I'd rather
Yeah, it's an
be's
American.
were always
It's an American thing.
Yeah, and could be.
I think it is.
I'd
But
rather be
I got to
golfing at some
thinking
back of
if-
your father's.
If
Oh, God, that's right.
You're right.
I didn't hear what
I
he
forgot
said.
about that.
There's that
I'd rather be
awareness.
golfing is on my father's grave. And
Oh.
I forgot about that.
Okay, that's great. Well, I got thinking the entire
It's an
motivation,
American thing.
because people do, particularly Westerners, tend to think of happiness as being
Mhm.
just a side issue, something frivolous, But if the Buddha had a motivational bumper sticker, it would have said on his chariot, it would have said, "I'd rather be happy."
Mhm.
His entire motivation came from seeing suffering and saying, I'd rather be happy. How do we get from here to there? And that's his North Star.
It is.
And
It's
so,
it's a transformation of the word when you really let it sit in. I always
very deep.
viewed happiness as the bow on the package.
Yeah, it's
And what he's saying is happiness is the package.
it is. It's in there.
It's not the bow. So that's one about happiness and a word that has changed in my thinking. The other one that I one of my favorite set of researchers was on gratitude, and I think we did it around the U.S. Thanksgiving one year, and this is also a Melody Beattie quote. Melody Beattie, the same lady again. Gratitude unlocks the fullness of life. It turns what we have into enough. And more, it turns denial into acceptance, chaos to order, confusion to clarity. It can turn people up. It can turn a meal into a feast, a house into a home, a stranger into a friend.
Wow.
Gratitude.
Nice.
Beautifully put.
Yes.
And so the gratitude that comes maybe even on the backside of happiness is a key feature
I
also
think they're
of the
joined.
Dharma.
I think they're very
They're
joined.
probably
Yeah.
synonymous terms.
Because all of Buddhism is dealing with sufficiency and excess, not scarcity. And we have a tendency in the richest country in the world, or part of
Those of us that come
Western
from
culture,
there,
all of it, is to kind of be coming from a sense that there's not going to be enough. I have to have more. More is better. You can never have enough.
More
you know,
choice.
more choice, more of everything, rather than realizing we already have way more than we actually need.
So those words, loving kindness, compassion, intention, gratitude, mindfulness, happiness. What would you like to say?
Gratitude.
I remember, I'll tell you a story. Back in my youth, I was hitchhiking around Europe and staying at these hostels and so on. And so you'd bring your food, and there's a common kitchen. So I said, what am I going to eat by myself? Macaroni and cheese or something stupid, right? And so I sat down and I was gobbling down my macaroni and cheese, trying to get it over as fast as possible. I noticed this two couples. They were French. I couldn't recall what they were talking about, but all they had was an artichoke and a half a bottle of wine.
Huh?
And I'd finished my meal, and they had hardly even started to peel the artichoke and dip it in wine, but there wasn't much to eat. But they were having the greatest time. Everybody just sort of, you could sense the gratitude they had for each other, and that they were sharing something very modest. And so my takeaway from this, before I was really aware of what was happening in the world, is I gotta try one of those artichokes.
That's there's your happiness.
And in wine for sure,
I
right?
only had one. I didn't have the gratitude of friends to share it with. That was a little different.
That's
How,
funny,
how
John.
do you define happiness?
Oh.
Because for me, that word seems very fleeting.
That's
I,
right.
I can be happy to take my kid to Disneyland and watch it. That can be happy.
That's superficial.
And it seems like to me like maybe the word for me would be contentment or
Yes.
joy.
Peace
which
of mind.
for me seems more in depth than the word happiness.
Well,
Happiness seems fleeting.
It
It
does.
sort of comes and goes, and
Yeah.
oh well, I was happy today because it rained in the dry season. I was happy about that today.
Well, those
But-
are all genuine, but they are fleeting. They're just temporary.
Right. That's why the
circumstantial.
word
The
happiness
happy,
doesn't work
the
for me.
happiness
Use a
In-
different word.
in Buddhism is a profound peace of mind,
Mhm.
Okay.
which comes from being free of all the hindrances and outgrowing yourself, actually, and being in alignment with being home. You're happy to be home. You know, when you get to that point.
I think that's why I put it on the list, and why we've talked about it in the last few
It
weeks.
does. For us, it is frivolous sound.
It's
but
it's
it's
that by coming here, that word has taken on deeper meaning
A
that
much deeper
includes
meaning.
the very things that
And-
you're talking about.
Okay.
And
got
it is the word he uses, so you
He
kind of are
does use
stuck
that
with
word.
it. This is what you're after.
Is it peace of mind or is it peace from mind?
From all of that,
Because that's
you get rid of all the hindrances, and if they're not there anymore, what takes their place?
Peace
A
in
profound
mind.
sense
Peace in,
of
because that's the thing for me. That kind
contentment.
of flow state where you're doing something where you're only just focused on the task, whether that's taking your kids to Disneyland or boxing or other things where you have ego dissolution. That's the kind of peace from mind. Because it seems that the mind is the problem. Sometimes.
Yeah.
So says the Buddha.
Yeah.
That our challenge is to change our mind.
Okay. And you're coming. This is good. I love this.
He said he loves it. The idea is to change your mind.
Yeah, it's good. It's,
Yeah,
it's extremely
that,
helpful.
it's a source. It's a source of many beautiful things, and it's a source of suffering.
But it's also very important in studying Buddhism that we live on two levels, and this addresses Cynthia. We always live on a relative level. The Buddha is associated with science because he talks about relativity. Reality depends on where you're standing and how you're looking at it, and what, all these different things that go into it. So you have relative happiness when you buy a new car, have a good rainy day, whatever. Absolute happiness is that same essence that we were talking about, that radiance, that diamond that you were talking about. That is an absolute one is relative. So it's just
it's
a matter
defining
of
the
degree.
term rather than out here, in here.
But his difference
internal.
is that he says that is an attainable absolute.
Yeah.
This is something that you can absolutely.
I want to
reach.
add what you were talking about when you were talking about that happiness is the combination of that with the ingredient mindfulness. That you live fully in the present moment.
Right.
Not in the past or the story you tell of the past. Not in the future and the story you're telling yourself and distracted by about the future. But mindfully in the moment. Every time I drive down this coastal highway, I have trained my mind beyond driving to see everything along the way. Because this is just mammothly beautiful.
Isn't it?
And you can be stuck in your head and you see none of it. You see none of it. All you are doing is winding your thinking around your thinking, around your thinking, around your thinking, around your stories and those things. And so that happiness is connected, what you were talking about, with mindfully living with the only thing you actually really have, which is this moment.
Well, the Buddha's four Brahma Viharas, or sublime abodes, the place where you live and come from in your relative life, should be loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, joy for all, and equanimity. And three of those sound like they belong together, like artichoke, tomato, and equanimity sounds like the one that doesn't fit. But it's the one that holds everything in proportion. And that's the middle way. But those are the places that if we live from those positions, he says, you will achieve sublime happiness.
You will be Rico. You will be rich. Okay, last one. My favorite. I saved for last. The most difficult one for me. Do you know what it is? Detached involvement. I had to do 3 talks before I finally felt like I came within range of the idea. It was seriously. I studied 3 different weeks, and finally, actually, I don't like listening to myself on these things. I generally don't. And I watched the third one after many weeks of 6 weeks of studying on it because it just was so difficult. Detached involvement, the idea, and I was like, "Well, there you go, Jeff. You got it."
Don't you think it's the difference between understanding the difference between detachment, which is what the Buddha recommends, and disconnect? Because you don't disconnect, you stay attached.
Yeah, absolutely.
You stay involved, but you step one step away.
Absolutely. So let me read my quote.
Yes.
This is the definition of detached involvement. When you practice detached involvement, you are both a participant and an observer of your life at the same time. You see all experiences as part of your journey without judging whether they are good or bad. You simply experience them and practice self-control in your responses to them. Being fully involved but detached from outcomes. There's a whole lot more. However, I think that's a pretty decent definition of detached involvement.
Definition.
You're both a participant and an observer of your life at the same time. That's a skill to develop.
And being detached from the outcome. That's what we got
That's
into. We got into that last week with someone who was here.
Being fully involved but detached from the quote inevitable outcome that we're looking for.
Just do it as right as you can, best you can, and let it go.
Let it be. Why this is so powerful is it's all of the spectrum of things that we are involved in. It's outer, it's inner, it's intellectual, it's relational,
Emotional.
it's emotional. It's a comprehensive idea that really does take the key word that, again, Cynthia, we have to reorient our thinking about the terms many times in Buddhism, is how we see that is not what it is.
Yeah.
Detachment is not, how did you say it?
Disconnect.
Is not to disconnect. It is to stay connected, but to release some of the control, the expectation. And when you become both a participant, mindful participant, and an observer of yourself, you have all the choices ahead of you. You're not stuck in your behaviors. You're transformed in the behaviors because you're fully there and you're fully observing yourself there. If you're making a mess, you're like, I'm making a mess here.
Yeah. Be honest.
And you're participating in making the mess. And when you observe yourself making the mess, interestingly, rather than just continue all the way to the conclusion and then pick up a mop to go back over what you just messed up, you pull yourself back. You release the habits. And so this detached involvement is really, it feels really empowering.
It is. You know, the one I love is in the Lojong trainings. I can't remember how many of them there are, but the last one just hit me. It's 3 words. Don't expect applause. This is a Buddhist teaching. This is one he taught. And he gave you 84 things in life. And when you stop and think about it, that's a profound lesson. When we do things, we sort of expect someone's going to appreciate it or, whatever, and we're going to be, And what he's saying, his last thing is, do it all the way you're supposed to do it. And don't expect applause. Ain't nobody going to give it to you. I love that.
After a while,
That's detached involvement.
After a while, you do.
That's
Pat
attached.
yourself.
I did all the things that I did without that
Loving yourself.
expectation
Good
of
for you.
applause.
Good for me.
Yeah. I don't have to have your approval, or whatever. It's
One of the important things I learned about managing other people, I forget who said this, but I picked it up and practiced it, was it's amazing what you can accomplish if you don't care who gets the credit for it.
oh yeah.
And that works every time.
It does.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to talk about detached involvement? It's like a favorite
It's a
topic of mine.
huge topic.
Huge. So our little 5 minutes is not going to do it justice today, except for we've done it
Well, you can
justice.
zing that.
We've done it justice. Don't even do it.
I gotta say, I had a total meltdown yesterday that this kind of applies to.
Yeah.
All right.
And today, I feel really happy. Yesterday, I was another person and so invested in the outcome. And I couldn't walk away from it. I was obsessed. I was like a dog with a bone. And it was about an order that I had made. And they had been putting me off. And it was supposed to be here weeks ago. And I was talking with Aeropost. I won't say anything about it. But anyway, so I was very upset with these people on the phone. And it eventually, it went bad. It didn't turn out good at all. And so it's not that I've resolved it in that way.
Yeah.
But I've resolved it in that what clearly came to me was I was so pissed and so into this thing. And then it occurred to me that it was this thing that I wanted delivered, that I had invested money in. And then it occurred to me, there are these people in Ukraine, and they have lost everything.
Put it in perspective.
Everything. And here I am just freaking out over this thing.
It's all relative.
And I was unable to let it go yesterday.
Yeah.
I was depressed last night. I was like, just don't be near me because I'm just too upset after sleeping on it. Now I've released it.
Good.
But I didn't know how to, I wasn't even aware that I was so attached and upset. And I think if I can, I'm getting better. I'm getting better at it. But if there is like little ways that we can, remember right when we're in the soup, right when we're in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And our brains are not, they're just,
that's
how
the
we
thing.
can-
Yeah.
I know they're little catchphrases and things.
Turn the switch. Yeah.
Well, but there are 3 R's that I use quite a lot in the early process. It was not with detached involvement as much, but to recognize, to identify, to become aware is the first step.
Yeah, but when you're unconscious,
when you're
you have to bring it to consciousness.
that's the thing. Yeah,
You have to bring that to consciousness. You need to be an observer and a participant in the life at the same time. We're talking exactly about the answers.
Yeah,
They're right here
I know.
in this topic.
No, over here. But when I'm there, I don't see it. But it's getting closer.
You had a
That's
frustration
progress. That's
that
progress.
was like her rock. It was like Cynthia's boulder in your street.
Yes.
And that was emotional.
Very.
What got you around the rock was your brain.
Yep.
Because all of a sudden you began to think.
You gained
You
perspective.
became aware and you got the perspective. And you said, oh, this looks pretty silly. I better get them up. But I mean, that's...
the 3 R's: recognize, release, replace. So you did that process over time, and you're doing it closer to the time of the event.
It's true.
This is progress.
Would it have been different? Like say this had happened to you.
Applaud for you.
No.
Yeah, only 24 hours.
Natalie, you have something.
I do. I haven't spoken until now because I'm really related to just everything. So I didn't want to be like, ooh. But I was.
Yeah.
In here, I was, ooh. So it's great to talk. Thank you. And thank, for pulling it all together, little lists and all that.
Yeah.
I've been having these. I just had a pretty amazing experience after some plant medicine, and but one of the things that I did for myself due to this, and this is what you're talking about, is like what if we learned how to go out in the world and use this,
Use it.
and in the loving kindness meditation, we always pray for someone who we are in conflict with. And I have a person here that I have been in conflict with, and I have really not been able to figure out why. But I could kill this person. I mean, she just makes... No.
Don't worry, you wouldn't be sitting this close.
Right?
She didn't mean
No,
here.
it's a person that has come into my life that I just, from day one, just a problem. And so I have used her as in my loving kindness meditation, and we run in kind of these same circles now, and I'm like, there has to, I've got to get over this, because as we say in the program, the acid only eats the container that it's in. And
The what?
she probably didn't
The acid only
Acid,
eats the
yeah,
container.
that's a
that
good
it's
one.
in.
Oh,
yeah,
that's a
you
good
know,
one.
and so I'm holding this resentment, which
You gotta
an
get rid of
alcoholic
it.
can't do. And so anyway, so I saw her at the ceremony on Saturday night. And within that setting of, just like a different realm, I was able to see exactly how ridiculous and how hurtful it is only to me. And what she's a teacher, obviously. There's something that I have to learn from this person. And I went up to her and I said, I don't even know what I said in honesty, but we hugged, we cried, and it was really this. It meant so much more than just that. It meant that I'm healing, I'm learning, I'm getting it, and it was
It's
a
taking
huge
a
moment for me. I have to say,
It's awesome.
it doesn't sound like a big
Yes, it is.
deal.
It is a big thing.
But to have learned, and since then, my happiness level has gone up because I have been able to think, okay, if I can do it. It's like it's possible. So what else can I do that with?
That's right.
It's like it's amazing. You can look
That's
around
wonderful.
and say,
Congratulations.
and then you're left with, these little moments of happiness, and whether we call them happiness or joy or contentment, but to be able to sit in my own skin and not be uncomfortable is just a moment of
That's
pure
great.
joy.
That really
Because
is
that's
awesome.
Joanna, Ruthie calls it you have embraced your Buddha nature. You have sat in the middle of it when
That's a
you've
pretty
done,
nice
when you've
sparkle.
done that. It's
Pretty nice radiance.
It's really nice.
So
Really
anyway,
beautiful,
so thank
beautiful.
you
Oh, that's
for
very
the
cool.
teachings of how to do that, how to realize that you have done it, and then sit back and appreciate how much and how wonderful that feels to be able to move on from it.
The word loneliness hasn't come up today. In fact, I don't
No,
recall it
I
ever coming
worked
up.
on that one before I ever came
Did
here.
you? Did you really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, of course I did.
But so much of this feeling that we have is a separation from ourselves and separation from other people. And of course, as Christians, we believed it was separation from God. But our remembering is remembering who we really are and who they really are. And that there is that balance in there. But a lot of that feeling that you have was loneliness. You cut yourself off. Now you got it.
What's Maslow say about that? The highest in this hierarchy of needs is attachment to other people. Keeps you at happiest.
So I just wanted to share one thing. I'm not sure how it relates, but it feels like it does.
Yeah, same way with me
I
all
am
the
a
time.
new grandmother.
Yeah.
I have a 6-month-old granddaughter.
Yay, she's beautiful.
And that
I don't know. I haven't seen any pictures.
I did that because I
thought
show
we loved
pictures
each other.
every day.
I've seen pictures.
So to see this baby, that is the total enlightenment right there. And all of a sudden she starts crying. And who knows why. Or you can tell she's mad because now at 6 months we see, oh, she didn't get. And so I find myself and my daughter saying to her, oh, you're mad. You're angry. So not even trying to change it for her, or oh, you're so happy. Just sort of identifying those things so she doesn't grow up thinking that it's bad to be angry.
No.
Do you know?
Right.
Yeah.
And watch her. It's just an amazing thing to see perfectness, and then to see those things that are going to come no matter what we do.
No matter what.
But to acknowledge it and accept it. So she can accept her anger, she can accept her happiness. Because we don't put, oh, you are. And so put words to those things for her even at 6 months. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah,
It is interesting.
It's really
So if you talk to me, I'm always going to bring it back to the grandbaby. So
Oh,
forgive me.
well, I've already got her. I've already got her paired off. With
So, anybody else on this last detached involvement thing? Otherwise, I have an ending that you're going to not be surprised at.
Oh, whoa! What is that?
We are going to end with reading the Roomie poem. The six, I said 5. This is like the ultimate.
Yeah.
This is the ultimate. For those of you who are not here, this brings it all together.
It does.
It's not even Buddhist. It's Sufi.
Yep, absolutely.
It's all right.
Rumi. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make any sense. The breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. You must ask for what you really want. Don't go back to sleep. People are going back and forth across the door sill where the two worlds touch. The door is round and open. Don't go back to sleep. Beautiful.
Yeah, really.
It is.
Amazing poem.
Amazing.
I think it's his turn to weep now.
His turn to what?
To weep. You, yeah. It touched
you
him.
crying?
It touched him.
Well, it makes
It's a
me
good
cry,
thing.
too. I can't see that you're weeping, so ha. That's one of the virtues of being. It makes me weep
Yeah,
very often.
and it's good to weep.
Things. Yeah,
It is.
It's good to
It
weep.
is.
But that's a very, very profound poem.
It's time for metta.
And it's time
Yeah,
for
I
metta.
picked up so much today.
Yeah,
Just having everything
Yeah.
condensed and
Yeah.
explained so well.
I like the
Thank you.
format. Yeah,
Thank you.
the format was
Good,
fabulous.
good.
Good job.
Thanks.
I know you weren't looking for applause.
I wasn't looking for applause. I wasn't.
Nah.
Okay, Ruthie, go ahead.
Okay. This is our loving kindness meditation. So one thing in the world that I guarantee is if you do loving kindness meditation for even a couple of weeks, you will begin to feel a change in how you perceive the world around you. I'm going to say a phrase and you repeat it to yourself silently. We're going to do an ever-widening circle of compassion, of loving kindness, beginning with ourselves. And I'll cough first. Okay. So take a deep breath. Relax. In your mind's eye, see yourself as if in a mirror or in that bowl of clear water. And say to yourself, may I be well. May no harm come to me. May I live with ease. That's equanimity. May I live with ease, calm and peaceful. May I be happy. Now bring to mind someone you love with all your heart. See his or her face, smile, say the name, and say, may you be well. May no harm ever come to you. May you live with ease, calm and peaceful. May you be happy. And then, with a smile, you bring to mind your neutral person. This is someone whose name you may not know. If that's the case, address him or her as friend. This is just someone that you have met, that you're familiar with, maybe someone who waits on you or someone you pass on the road every morning or whatever. But you look at them and you smile and you say, "Dear friend, may you be well. May no harm come to you. May you live with ease, calm and peaceful. May you be happy. And then as they fade into the rear view, you take a very deep breath, straighten up, and you look straight at someone with whom you are in conflict. You don't blink, and you mean what you say without any malice in your heart. May you be well. May no harm come to you. May you live with ease, calm and peaceful. May you be happy. And then you let that rest for a moment. And we take our hands and we place them over our hearts, because that's the only place symbolically that is big enough to take in all things, all sentient beings. 8 billion of us on this planet. Who knows how many else out there somewhere. And we think about this phantasmagoria of life and love and suffering and sorrow and happiness and joy and all that is. And with gratitude in our hearts that we were able to participate in this life, even for however brief a time that may be, and we want to share it with everyone, we say, may all beings everywhere on this plane and all other planes be well. May all beings everywhere be safe. Be safe. May all beings everywhere be free from suffering. May all beings everywhere be happy. And if we're at home, we can sit with that feeling for a long time. But we're here, so we release our hands. We put them in prayer position. And now I'm going to say a sentence, and we say it out loud, and then we're done for today. Goes like this. Go in peace.
Go in peace.
Go making peace.
Go making peace.
Living gently.
Living gently.
Loving mightily.
Loving mightily.
And bowing to the mysteries.
And bowing to the
mysteries.
Okay, guys, see you next week.